Welcome to Paul's Little Room. Welcome to Paul's Little Room. So I'm just going to very quickly talk about Dekoni. Now Dekoni are known for making aftermarket pads for headphones, and they're a very popular brand. People who are not that happy with the comfort of their headphones sometimes opt for very good quality aftermarket pads, but bearing in mind whenever you change a pad from what the manufacturer intended to a aftermarket external manufacturer, you're going to change the tuning, even if the pads are designed in a very similar way. So I'm going to talk about just one pair of Dekoni pads today, and they are, here's the lovely box they came in. It's very nice, it's like a cake box, and as you can see, Dekoni audio, and these are intended for the Fostex T50 RP, and these are called the Elite Velour. Now I got these for my Fostex T60 RPs, but I ended up preferring the original leather pads. I just preferred the tuning. I thought, can I improve the bass a little bit, try these Dekonis, and it ended up being a little bit too much of a change for me. So I thought, okay, I'll hold on to them. They're gorgeous pads. They luckily fit my own latest 2 headphone. Now the pads that I designed these to use are the Brainwaves 110mm pads. Now I've been experimenting with synthetic velour, or microsuede, no, it's more like velour, and then the hybrid pads. Now the hybrid pads, they've got this velour, so they're very dusty because I've used them a lot. The hybrid pads from Brainwaves have the velour on here, the part which touches the skin, for comfort, whilst the tuning will be done with the fenestrated, the perforated lining, and the solid leatherette on the outside. And what you're doing with the solid leatherette, you're internalising the sound waves, you're creating a little bit of a box for the bass tones, so you're going to be increasing a little bit of the sub-bass presence there. There are lots of features that will change the sound of your headphones. For instance, this chamber, the size of the chamber, the depth that your ear sits in, the width, the height, the angle, the materials which are touching your ear, the materials that the sound waves are going to be bouncing off of and absorbed by, and also even the material which is cushioning will affect the sound. So for instance, these use a memory foam, and memory foam will have a different density to some other foams, and that will also alter the sound. Anyway, back on to the Dekonis. So the Dekoni, even though they were designed for the Fostex, they're 100mm high, and I think they're around about 95mm wide. However, the pads that I designed these headphones for are 110mm tall and 90mm wide, so they're absolutely fine. You can just squeeze these onto the same headphone and they fit absolutely fine. Now the amount of seal I'm getting around here does vary a little bit. The Dekonis have quite a shallow amount of material going around fringe maybe. Anyway, so you'll see there's actually a relatively small amount going on to that, whilst if you look at the Brainwaves pads, they actually had quite a deep amount of material for sound isolation. There was actually a rubber ring around here, and I've cut that off. The reason I cut that off was because my headphones, let me take one of these Dekoni pads off. You'll notice there's tuning holes, and I didn't want to cover those tuning holes. So you can see there's a line, and I wanted the pad to seal up to that line and not beyond it. So looking a bit closer at the Dekoni pads, you see them side by side with the Brainwaves. They're both about the same depth. In fact, the Dekonis, I would say they're 3 centimeters, 30 millimeters deep, which is quite deep for a pad. The original pads, which came with the Fostex, the leather ones, are 25 millimeters on the tallest point, and they're angled with a thinner section, whilst these are 30 millimeters all the way around. So there's a good deep space for the ear to go in with a mesh at the back. The Brainwaves, they're around about 25 millimeters deep, so not as deep, but these have a wider opening for the ear. Can you see that? So the Dekoni around about 55 millimeters, maybe 50 millimeters high for the ear, and only about 35 millimeters, let me see, no, about 40 millimeters wide. So relatively small space there. And then the Brainwaves, it's a substantial area for your ear to fit in. That's also going to affect the sound stage characteristics of the pad. Now I'm going to put these on my headphones and put them on my mini DSP ears, and here's me discussing that. Okay, so these are the latest 2 headphones. These are the prototype of the full open back headphone I'm developing, and currently I have the synthetic micro suede pads from Brainwaves, and so this is the mini DSP measuring rig, and I'm going to make a comparison between these and the hybrid pads from Brainwaves, and then finally the Dekoni micro suede pads. So let's do a sweep in a roux for the Brainwaves pads. And as you can see, there is a gentle drop off in the sub bass, but you can see it's actually very good bass response. It only really starts to dip at 70 Hertz. That's really fantastic. Look at that nice clean bass. And then there's a bit of a spike between 4 and 5K, which is deliberate. I had that in there deliberately when I tuned the headphones. And you can see that there's a good amount of treble information. It is slightly above the mids, so the mids are only slightly recessed compared to the mid treble, and the drop off really happens at about 10K, so there's lots of information. There's a very detailed headphone. Now try and have a look here, and let's try the Brainwaves hybrid pads. So these are the hybrid pads from Brainwaves. They have a synthetic micro suede which touches the ear, but other than that they have a pleather, very nice soft pleather surround, which is fenestrated inside, but you can see it's actually not perforated on the outside. And let's see how these compare to the Brainwaves micro suede pads. So as I So again, these only have the micro suede on the bit touching the ear, the rest perforated inside, not on the outside. Okay, so have a look at the bass response. You can see the treble has not been altered. There's still a little bit of a dip between 1 and 2K, which is absolutely fine. That's good for spatial information. I would say that the mid bass and mid treble are slightly more in line. I'm just going to review that and check if I'm correct. So have a look at these. You can see there's a few more bumps around about the 6K region. The mid treble and mid bass are a little bit closer together, and the drop off is now happening round about a little bit earlier, so round about 50 Hertz. So there's slightly more sub bass information with the hybrid pads, and the micro suede, it's got slightly more mid bass but less sub bass. Okay, so these are the Fostex Elite Velour pads, and it's kind of like a micro suede as well. It feels more natural to the touch. It doesn't glisten in the light like the brainwaves, it certainly feels a bit more breathable, but it's still a dense material. Now these pads are slightly shorter from top to bottom than the brainwaves, so they're more like 100 millimeters rather than 110, and width-wise they're slightly more. So I would say they're more like 100 millimeters wide, but when you stretch them onto the headphones, they take up about the same area. Now the space that your ear goes into is smaller. I had to actually, you really have to kind of squish these around this earlobe, and so I think anyone with particularly large ears might find the height and width of these Dekonis a little bit narrow, but I'm just going to point to the box. Hi Slimer, he's being attacked. And these are intended for the Fostex T50RP, and I have been trying them on the T60 RPs, and I prefer the original leather pads with those. However, these pads, for me, they're my favourite for my latest two headphones, and let's have a look why. So I've just run a sweep on Woo, and you can see what's happened here is you have a emphasis to the mid bass compared to the Brainwaves pads. If we go to the hybrid, Brainwaves hybrid, you can see it's more of a plateau, but it's you can see this is very even mids with a slight dip between 1 and 2K, so a treble spike between 4 and 5, and as you can see there's a treble spike between 4 and 5K, just with the same as with the Brainwaves synthetic velour. However, watch what happens to the mids. Okay, so the Brainwave synthetic velour, so just they're completely velour, you'll notice that there's quite a lot of treble information, upper treble information actually. The mid bass starts to drop off at 54 Hertz, and then there's quite a sharp dip. These are very gentle in the sub bass. Okay, there's information there, but it's not as defined. And then let's go to the hybrid pads, and those have brought up the sub bass. Can you see this is a lovely amount of smooth, detailed sub bass? It comes gently up into the mids, and there's a bit of a plateau here, so you'll notice from around about 60 Hertz all the way to 1K there's a lot of information there. And so what's happening there, it's a very flat presentation. The vocals are not being brought excessively forwards, and you've got a very nice amount of bass information, and you've also got a very nice amount of treble, so very, very accurate. These pads, the hybrid Brainwaves pads, these are going to be good for being analytical. So if I want to see which music mixes are a little bit too boomy, or have too much treble or not enough treble, vocals too forward or too far back, this is the way to go. Now let's go on to the Dekoni pads, and watch very carefully. What they're doing is they are smoothing out the upper treble, so smoothing it out slightly compared to those hybrid pads, but there's going to be a little bit less spatial representation, so they're smoother but not necessarily more detailed. You can see on the hybrid pads there's a little dip between 1 and 2K. I did that deliberately when I was tuning the headphones. With these pads, moves that dip, so there's a little bit less spatial representation. You're trading off one for the other. So let's have a look at the sub bass. So Dekoni, it's dropping off round about 54 Hertz, and then you've got a nice amount of information, a bit of a bump at 15 Hertz. So you've got a bit of kick there, in the sub bass, whilst you've got even more information, more deep guttural bass for the Brainwaves hybrid pads. Textured, yeah, it's more textured on the hybrid pads, but you do have this little bit of a hump, so that might interfere a little bit with the perception of detail in the mid treble. So what's to conclude, the Dekoni pads have a good compromise between detail and smoothness, whilst the hybrid Brainwaves pads are detail all the way. They might be a little bit punishing. I personally think they're fantastic for listening to classical music. And then the Brainwaves synthetic velour pads, for me, they have too much of a drop off in the bass, and they're a little bit treble, mid treble and upper treble sharp. So I would say that by far my favourite pads are going to be long-term listening, the Fostex, and analytical listening, the Brainwaves hybrid. So talking about the comfort, I would say these have a medium density to them, so they're firm enough that when you wear them they're not going to be dramatically squashed, and therefore you're not going to be dramatically changing the sound with the amount of pressure that the headphone is applying on the side of your head. There is a issue if you have pads that are very plush. You're going to be having quite big differences in the sound stage depending on how big your head size is, because the larger your head, the more pressure you're going to be getting from those pads, from the spring tension of the headphones. So that's very much worth bearing in mind. You'll notice that if you've ever had headphones which are professional headphones, a lot of the time the padding is very firm, and that's for consistency of the sound. So comfort wise, let's put my headphones on. Now these are designed to tilt the pad back slightly, so tilting that way, and that's a comfort feature. Okay, now when I put these pads on, the Dekonis do actually have a little bit of noise isolation, passive noise isolation. Now this is a fully open headphone, but you'll still notice there's a little bit of isolation around this area, and this is a medium light tension from these headphones. I don't like headphones which are so loose that when you move your head around, the headphone flies around as well. So medium tension and very comfortable, but still firm enough that the pad maintains its shape. Now these pads are the same, as I said, same thickness at the front as on the back, and the same with the Brainwaves pads. The Brainwaves pads are not thicker at the back and thinner at the front. Some headphones, for instance, a good example is on the Hi-Fi Man headphones. If I find some Hi-Fi Man headphones here, so these are the Edition XS, and you'll notice, if you look this way, you'll notice the pad is thicker at the back, behind the ear, than at the front, and what that's doing is it's tilting the driver slightly towards you for better, more realistic sound staging. Now what I've done with my latest two headphones is I've tilted the actual driver, and the housing for that driver is tilted, so I do not require pads that are angled. And the reason I chose that as a feature was because I wanted to be able to experiment with as many different pads as possible to try and find the best pads for this headphone, because it is a prototype. So that's the pads. I'm very impressed with them. I'm definitely going to be using those pads with my latest two headphones, and I think if I do end up having my headphones manufactured, I'd certainly consider using the Dekonis as the default pads. But I think because they're going to be quite a posh headphone, I'm going to include two alternative pads in the box if I do get that far with my headphones. So let's look at another product by Dekoni. I obtained this at CanJam London, and I was looking for a case for my Altus Bluetooth headphones. So these are my Bluetooth ones, which this is a prototype. I'm currently working on a version that has a more discreet looking hood design, and there's going to be less visible signs of 3D printing on the plastic components. Anyway, so you can see that these come with again a very different pad. This pad I've chosen for very good passive noise isolation, external noise isolation, and also because they've got a very large area inside, very deep as well. Anyway, besides that, let's look at this case. So this is called the Saviour, the Headphone Saviour, and it's a very nice, very smart grey cloth material. Now these come in two different colours. They come in a pale grey and a dark grey. It's got real leather little tabs here you can pull on the zips, and now this is a very large container for a headphone. To give an example, these have very large pads on them, and there's no problem at all refitting these headphones in like that. Okay, if I find another big headphone, let's really go excessive. Let's see if the Edition XS fit in here. I've not tried this actually, so I'll do that. It's the first time I've tried this, so I'm going to do that. What do you reckon? Oh my goodness. It fits. So there you go. Every headphone is going to fit in this. So now this does come in a standard size and a large size. So this is the large size carrier. Now some other features which I quite like with this, you've got obviously the shoulder strap, which is quite comfortable. You have a zipped compartment at the back. Again, that's lovely real leather tab on there. And in here I've got the cable for my Altus headphones, because you can actually convert these from Bluetooth, oops, anyway, to cable. There you go. So you can fit quite a large cable in the back. It's quite a good size pocket. And in the top you've got a netting here for other accessories as well, which is very handy also. And now when I bought these, it rained, and yeah, it seemed to be fine. I didn't have any worry about my headphones being damaged in the rain. It wasn't a heavy shower, but you know. So what does it say on here? It says, the headphone savior from Dekoni Audio is a total solution where your headphones need to be on the go. It fits most models, including large headphones like the Odyssey LCD2 and Sennheiser HD 800. Well, there you go. I think we've proven that I don't think there are any headphones which aren't going to fit in this. So there you go. Now I'm trying to remember. Now I bought this for, I think it was £35. So, but that was the show price. I think this is probably going to be more like £45 if you buy it online. So I'm very pleased with it. I just thought I'd show you that with the pads. So hopefully I'll be reviewing more Dekoni products in the future. I'm not quite at the stage where they're sending me free products, so these are bought with my own money. So can I think of any issues I've had? Not really. I think they are quite premium. You are paying more for the brand, but everything Dekoni do is very nice quality. And where are the pads? Here they are. All of the pads that Dekoni make are made by hand, which is very nice. And there's good quality control. And with headphones you want good consistency. You don't want there to be any discrepancies in the tuning, for instance. These headphones, my Altus 2, these are reference headphones, so I want the tuning to be very, very specific and very, very reliable. So if I find that these pads wear out and I buy another pair the same, you're going to find there's a good consistency and that there's no variations, well, hopefully no variations between those pads. So that's it for today. Please do comment if you like, and please do consider subscribing, and please watch my other videos. Thank you very much. This has been Paul's Room. Goodbye.